is not designed right now to necessarily develop great leaders or to encourage more people to seek public office.
But there's a massive pressure that you place on yourself when you're stepping into shoes like that.
Today, we're going to talk about what's turning into one of Disney's toughest times. The interesting chain of events that started with Rachel Zegler's comments have put CEO Bob Iger in a situation that has never been seen before. Disney's big plan to rethink Snow White has turned into what people in the business are calling a full-blown crisis. A shocking 800,000 people have disliked the new trailer, while only 27,000 have liked it. These numbers give a clear picture of how people feel, but they only scratch the top of a much bigger problem that's shaking Disney's remake plan to its core. The magnitude of the reaction has caught many by surprise.
Friend, and she's the one who sent me the casting notice and said, "Thank me when you're famous." It's the craziest thing ever that it came true in that weird way, and that's why I bring her everywhere, and she's the best ever. But yeah, I put myself on tape.
Even those who watched Disney's previous remake controversies, while films like Dumbo and The Lion King face their share of criticism, Snow White has caused a strong reaction among fans that goes beyond normal disagreement. It's become a lightning rod for larger cultural conversations about how old stories should be retold for modern audiences. We should look into why this version has caused so much trouble. As the first full-length animated feature film ever made, Snow White, released in 1937, was more than just another Disney movie. It was a turning point in the history of movies.
If they play Getaway Car or Maroon, she's on crisis watch. And not only did she play Getaway Car, she also played Maroon. I was having a mental breakdown in the audience at MetLife Stadium.
I love it.
This wasn't just a good movie. It was a groundbreaking success that helped Disney become a leader in animation and set the bar for how stories should be told in animated movies. They weren't just telling any story, they were hitting on an important part of their own past. There are many difficult parts to the controversy surrounding this remake, and each one adds to the building tension between Disney and its fans. One of the most controversial changes includes the reimagining of the Seven Dwarfs. Early reports said that the movie would not have traditional dwarves, but magical beings instead. This choice was made after star Peter Dinklage said that the original story didn't do a good job of showing little people. Dinklage had good points about portrayal and stereotyping. Many fans are skeptical and angry about Disney's suggested answer because
Anything that has to do with technology creating opportunity for us, I find very enjoyable. The creative process at its highest level is at times frustrating, but often, and fortunately for us, really enjoyable. So when you sit,
they think it changes the story's identity in a big way without really solving the problems at hand. The casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White has become another big focal point of debate. Symbolically and practically, the character's name, Snow White, refers to a certain physical trait that is important to the story. It's not just about the players. It's also about whether changing such a basic part of the character adds to or takes away from the story. While Disney has successfully race-bent characters in other remakes, like Halle Bailey as Ariel in The Little Mermaid, Snow White presents unique challenges because the character's physical look is literally part of her name.
The one where he was in the boxing ring.
Boxing ring, and Howard Cosell, who was then a famous announcer for ABC Sports, introduced him. And I was asked at some point to get Mr. Sinatra Listerine. We're at Madison Square Garden. It's not like there's a Listerine store at Madison Square Garden. So I dutifully ran out, found a drugstore of some sort.
And important to the story's themes. As the first full-length animated feature film ever made, Snow White, released in 1937, was more than just another Disney movie. It was a turning point in the history of movies. This wasn't just a good movie. It was a groundbreaking success that helped Disney become a leader in animation and set the bar for how stories should be told in animated movies. Triumphing over evil by diminishing or removing his role, some say that Disney isn't fixing a problem but rather making one by misunderstanding the original story's themes. Rachel Zegler's public words about the original Snow White being dated have only intensified the debate. Her comments, while probably well-intentioned, have been interpreted by many fans as dismissive of a beloved classic that holds deep meaning for multiple generations. They're not against progress or evolution in storytelling,
but we bring to China a type of ideology, admittedly a relatively benign one as it relates to politics in China, but still a Western ideology. And in many ways, that had value to them because I think they wanted to prove that they were not as
but they want changes that feel important and real rather than forced or superficial for Disney CEO Bob Iger. This situation offers a particularly important challenge. The Snow White controversy comes at a time when Disney is already facing scrutiny over its artistic choices and business strategy. The overwhelming negative response to the trailer suggests that the company might need to reassess its approach to remakes, especially when dealing with its most iconic brands. This isn't just about one film's success or failure. It's about keeping trust with an audience that has deep emotional ties to these stories. The debate raises important questions about the nature of adaptation itself. How much can you change a story before it loses its core character? What makes a story timeless, and how can those aspects be? While there's certain
the board was making a decision to make a change at the CEO level at Disney, and that they might ask me to step back.
And you say to her?
And I said to Willow, I'm getting this call. It's possible that I could get asked back. She immediately said, well, maybe not. Is not designed right now to necessarily develop great leaders or to encourage more people to seek public office. It just is far more difficult. Now, I've never been in it, but from what I observe, it's far more difficult to run for office today than ever before. And if you do it as a sitting CEO,
room for updating classic stories, success seems to lie in finding the right mix, honoring what made these stories timeless while carefully evolving them for new audiences. The overwhelming negative response to the Snow White trailer suggests that Disney might have missed this balance. The choice to replace the dwarves with magical beings perfectly exemplifies this problem. While meant to address real concerns about representation, the solution has been criticized as an overcorrection that might actually reduce opportunities for little people in Hollywood. It's a perfect example of how well-intentioned changes can sometimes miss the mark and cause new problems instead of solving current ones. Looking at the bigger context, this controversy isn't just about Snow White. It's about how culture institutes.
That would be my preference as well.
Why your preference?
Well, look, I'm going to be 72 years old tomorrow. I've put in almost 50 years. There are other things in life that I'd like to do. I also am confident that the board will be able to identify an able successor.
Institutions like Disney handle the evolution of beloved stories in an increasingly complex social environment. The massive dislike count on the trailer suggests that audiences are getting weary of remakes that seem to value modern message over storytelling. They're not against progress or evolution in storytelling, but they want changes that feel important and real rather than forced or superficial for Disney CEO Bob Iger. This situation offers a particularly important challenge. The Snow White controversy comes at a time when Disney is already facing scrutiny over its artistic choices and business strategy.
The rice has to be body temperature, and if it takes too long to serve it, it's no longer body temperature. But what was interesting to me about him was he had 3 Michelin stars, and he was still trying to learn how to get better, how to be better.
Yes.
And I showed that to executives at Disney. Because I thought it was such a great principle, because so often either the team's tired or you feel you've...
The overwhelming negative response to the trailer suggests that the company might need to reassess its approach to remakes, especially when dealing with its most iconic brands. This isn't just about one film's success or failure. It's about keeping trust with an audience that has deep emotional ties to these stories. The debate raises important questions about the nature of adaptation itself. How much can you change a story before it loses its core character? What makes a story timeless, and how can those aspects be?